if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, good morning and welcome to the July the 26th, 2022 edition of the Counter Racist Code Show, also called the CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. We first off want to thank you for listenership. We do not take it lightly that you give us the pleasure of your time, so we hope that we are responsible and live up to the expectations that you expect. On the line we have Mr. Fuller, which I will introduce in a moment, but just for your information, Mr. Fuller will also be on the Carl Nelson Show this Thursday, that is July the 28th, from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. It's also on the website at producejustice.com where you can listen to the Carl Nelson Show. But keep that in mind, from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m., Mr. Fuller will be on the Carl Nelson Show, so you may want to do that. Contact numbers today or is this, 516-453-9921. And if you have a brief comment or a question that you would like Mr. Fuller to answer, when the call screener comes on, give them your name so that I can see that. Thank you, Black Mermaid. Just got you in here. Please give your name so that I can properly give you an introduction. And I've been working on my pronunciation of names, but still learning. And occasionally I will trip over it, but I will try not to. You can also reach me at my Gmail at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby at BOBB at 7 Mr. Bobby BOBBY at gmail.com. All righty? Yeah, you can do that. At 7 Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. And I can't say that I will read it for sure, but I will indicate to you using these 2 words, got it, and then it will fall into rotation. And when the time is permitting, I will read your Gmail and let you know the date and the time that your Gmail is read. You can do that. You can also join the chat room, and they are in there already. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to click on shows and the Produce Justice show or programs, whichever line is up there. Click on that, and then when that comes up, then the place for you to join the chat box comes available. Click on that and get in there. Now, there are rules in the chat room, and those that follow the show know that we don't call anybody out of their names. No fussing. Come on. And there are some interesting conversations that go on in the chat, and the chatters will identify those who do not follow the code. The code. Speaking about that, let me do this. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, before we get to our usual opening, in group this past week, a subject came up about codes. And I detected some animosity about some of the members that were speaking of that and speaking about codes. And it seems as though some of them were a little frustrated that why does Mr. Fuller always talk about codes or operating in a code? He'll always refer to codes. And I said, well, maybe you should call in and ask him why does he do that. But then as we went on with the discussions, I said, well, wait a minute now. I said, now, aren't you aware that you operate on a code all the time? You had a code when you got up, a code when you're at a traffic light, a code that you operate on to be safe, to know what you're doing. Don't you understand that, or have you been fooled into thinking that you don't operate without a code? We all do. Mr. Fuller operates the code. He specified it, having a code that addresses white supremacy, racism, which is racism. And nobody really said anything about that. And I said that I would ask that question to you, your thoughts or expressions on codes, or why do you say that we have a code, in answer to that question, starting off the day in your thoughts and expressions?
A code is just a way of doing things. That's all. D-O, the word, a two-letter word. Everybody does something. There's a code for driving a car. There's a code for just about everything people do anyway. I mean, if they're doing it efficiently, anything that works has a code to it. If it produces constructive results or any kind of results, destructive results, are according to a code. Firing a gun is according to a code. You have to go through certain procedures. People who have guns and go around killing people, they know that. You can't kill a person with a gun that's designed to kill a person with bullets. You have to go according to the code by putting bullets in the gun. If you don't have any bullets in the gun, you're not going according to the code for shooting the gun. Guns shoot bullets. I mean, and that's just one angry example. But baking a cake, they call it a recipe. So you don't have to call it a code. You can call it a recipe. I'm going to say that again. If you don't want to, nobody's forcing you to. So you don't get just tangled up in words so just to find something to do. There's plenty to do. You can call it anything you want to. It's just getting something done. Code just means getting something done. And not getting lost in the words about getting something done. That's all code is. There's nothing else. Just getting what needs to be done, done. Then you got code. Now you can call it anything, a recipe, or doing something, or constructive activity. I refer to it as that. Any constructive activity, anything that people do that produces a constructive result was done according to the code. So when you get ready to do that again, you do it the way you did it the last time. Why? Because it got done. That's all. Now, not going according to a code means you don't get it done. If you get it done and it works and produces a constructive result, then that was code. But you don't have to call it that. You can say, I don't like the word code. I'm going to use the word recipe. So just say, this is my recipe. Not only for baking a cake, but for driving a car, or for finding the best way to get to work. You cut off 30 minutes off of your driving time by going one way rather than the other way, and you say that, hey, this is the best code. Sometimes you set up something, a little device on the in the car. I've seen people do that. I don't know how to do it, but I've been in cars where people say, I'm going to set up a GPS. GPS is a code.
Yes.
That's all it is. I mean, it goes according to a code. The car just doesn't start telling you to go any which way. This turn at the first corner you get to, and any corner that you think about going, you'll get to where you're going. The GPS is supposed to say, now this is the fastest way to get where you are telling me that you want to go. And that's the understanding I have for what I'm listening to when I'm in a car and somebody's using what they say GPS. They say turn at the next corner left.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn left, and they'll say keep going until you get to the street light, next street light. And so that might be 4 blocks. And so it says turn right at the next green light.
Yes.
So that's what you have to remember. That's a code. It's also a way of getting things done, which is what a code is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you can call it a recipe if you want to, or you can call it GPS. So if you just want to say in solving problems, any problem, you'll say that's my GPS.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody will probably ask you, who doesn't know what GPS is, that's all. You just tell them, just like I just did. A way of finding your way around the best possible way from where you are.
Right.
So solving problems is all about codification. When you go to school, you are going to school to find out what the code is. The code is for what? For how to get through the life or the world or whatever you want to call it in the best possible manner without making a whole lot of mistakes.
Exactly.
Reading a book, that's all codified. Anytime you read something, you're reading a code. That's all codified. C comes after a B in what they call learning the alphabet. One of the first things you learn, or everything that you learn in school, is codified. They're saying, we're giving you the best route through life. It's a shortcut. You come to school and you don't have to go around trying to find out everything for yourself, by yourself, without nobody's help. We're going to help you along at age 6, fast forward you, and we're going to have a lot of codes to do that. ABCs is one. You got to learn your ABCs. That's a code. A through Z is a code. So I don't see how anybody's mystified. Look in a dictionary and see what the word code means. Any dictionary. I mean the same thing when I say it.
Yes.
Now, if anybody has any questions about it, who's been asking these questions or going back and forth with somebody or that, it's just a way of getting things done in the best possible manner. That's all code is. But you can use it. You can say it any way that you want to without even using the word code. Just say, I'm just trying to get things done. Man, I'm just trying to get something done in the best possible manner. Get my car fixed in the best possible manner.
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, now, if anybody wants me to say further than that, I can say it in 1,000 different ways, but I'll still be saying the same thing.
Yes. Plus, they can call in at 516-453-9921. In that group, I just detected that there was another agenda there. I don't know if it was centered on jealousy, but I just couldn't believe that they didn't understand. I couldn't see that they were operating under a code by whatever they were or were not doing. They're still operating under it. And correct, they don't have to call it a code. Or as 888, Rita 888 says on the chat, and I agree with her. She said that basically, if you basically, now, these are not her first words, but if you don't operate with the code, you can expect, and I like this part, you can expect, well, it will lead to a tragic arrangement, trashy, tacky, and terroristic in whatever you do if you don't operate with the code. Thank you, Rita. But anyway, I just thought I would add that in there, and that was one of the things that group were talking about. So maybe somebody's got a hidden agenda or somewhere. Maybe they're against you for whatever the reason. I had several Gmails that seemed to be a little harsh in that matter on different subjects. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Fuller, on that. We'll get to your other thoughts and expressions later on in the program, but right now we're going to take a phone call, and we're going to go to the unappreciated black teacher. Get ready, unappreciated black teacher, UBT. Here we go. Let me see if I can get you in here. Oh,
good morning, Mr. Bobby.
Good morning. You're there. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
My question for Mr. Fuller is, why is the concept of critical race theory causing so much irritation in the educational system that serves the concept of America when the same educational system celebrates Black History Month every February?
Okay, thank you for your question, Mr. Fuller.
Well, the procedure, the codified procedure, is to ask the person who is irritated or upset about it. I mean, you ask them. They say you can ask them the logical codified question. Are you upset about critical race theory? And let the person who is upset say yes or no. Questions and answers will take everybody right where they want to go. Now, that's a part of the code, all right? Questions and answers. Always ask the question, what do they mean when they say critical race theory upsets them or makes them angry or whatever it is they make them. Questions and answers. And then if they want to know what critical race theory is, since they are using the term, tell them to find the person that came up with it and ask and talk to them about it and tell them that they are upset about it. Like if Neely Fuller says something about the code and somebody gets upset when they hear about it, who is this Neely Fuller? And talking about some blankety blank code and all like that. I'd like to talk to his ignorant self. Well, they can talk to me. That's the procedure. I'm the person to talk to. And so someone, wanted to know about, I don't know whether they were angry about it or not, but why does Neely Fuller keep talking about a code? And I guess I gave my answer just a few minutes ago. Because I'm the person to ask. Mm-hmm. I'm the one that's talking about it, and they mentioned my name. So I hope that the answer gets out there all over the world. Code just means the best way to get something done that will produce the most constructive result. Those two words that will produce the most, 3 words if you want to, most constructive result, or just constructive result. I usually just send on 2 words, constructive result. Did it produce a constructive result, what you did? I mean, you threw that brick through the window. Did that produce a constructive result? If so, what was the constructive result? If you're throwing the brick through the window. And just wait for the answer. That's all. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers.
Yes,
so
don't help.
You're talking about critical race theory. Talk to the person or persons, at least who have talked to the persons and gotten answers about critical race theory and what it is and what is it supposed to do.
Okay.
Everything that people come up with, slogans and all like that, and we have all kinds of slogans. I have a little sheet of paper here where I have a bunch of them written down. I mean, we got to come together. That's the slogan. So you ask the person who is using the slogan, what do you mean by we have to come together? And who do you mean by we? Who is we? And what do you mean by coming together? And coming together, does that mean doing something? Doing what when we come together?
You're asking questions.
All the questions, all you need is stay in the question lane. And the answers will come, and they're supposed to come, even if the answer is like it is with most answers. The answer that I give to most things, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, hold it right there. Speaking about that, here's a Gmail that says this from Gary. Says this, Mr. Fuller, why do white supremacists get so upset about political correctness and critical race theory instead of being made about all these white mass murders?
You have to talk to the white people who get upset. It's very simple. Just ask the person the source. See, if you ask me why does my sister get upset when you say certain things to her, unless she's told me why she gets upset when certain things are said to her, I have to answer those 3 words, I don't know. Then I make a suggestion, a codified suggestion. Why don't you ask her? Duh. Now, if she's told me why she got upset when you say things like that, then I just relay what she told me. It's real simple. Most things, see, but black people have been trained. We have been trained. We got to think about that, to make simple things complicated. The white supremacist has done that to our minds. And usually we do it with the best of intentions, I guess. But a lot of us do it without the best of intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we want to do, really, is draw attention to ourselves by being controversial. And that's something that the white supremacists has taught us to be also. See, we've been taught a lot of things. Be combative about everything that somebody says, particularly if it's another black person. Rather than try to understand what is being said, just immediately put up your fist and say, let's fight. Verbally, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. Or, since we're so starved for attention, so many of us, and it's understandable, we all like attention. We're born wanting attention, but it's how we use it. You know, how we go about getting attention.
Yes,
many people are willing to die,
mm-hmm.
and we see that, willing to die just to get, like Andy Warhol said, your 15 minutes worth of fame. You're willing to die for it.
Mm-hmm.
Drop the gun. Drop the gun. Drop the gun. And we hold on to that gun because we know what's coming next.
Yes, sir.
But we'll do it anyway. Why?
Mm-hmm.
We got attention.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't that lead
we're so sick we don't know we don't know that we're sick.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't
we know what's going to happen? We do it anyway.
Yes, sir. I was going to say, doesn't that lead into the 4 wants? A baby cries. Why? Because the baby wants something.
Yes. And what is one of the things that everybody on the planet wants? We want attention.
Attention.
I just said it. Babies come into the world screaming. Screaming for what? Screaming for attention.
Attention.
Because the baby needs to be cared for. And that doesn't leave us. It's just a matter of how we codify it, how we respond to that need.
There we go,
right.
Codification. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. All righty. Thank you, unappreciated black teacher and Gary. We mixed you in there together, unappreciated. You better not be a stranger. Just teasing you. You're okay. Let's take a little teeny-wee break here because we had some extra time. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and we are so appreciative that you have taken the time to do that. You can contact the show with a question or a comment, which we call, Mr. Fuller calls VGQ, by dialing this number, 516-453-9921. Make sure you give the call screener your name so that I can properly give you an introduction. By the way, first-time callers, if you identify yourself as a first-time caller, the call screener will set up something very special for you so that you can be heard. So if you are a first-time caller, make sure you tell the call screener that, and they will let me know if I miss it because there's so many names that come up on the screen. Sometimes yours may be down at the bottom and I don't see it, but they'll let me know. And you can ask your question. You don't have to be scared, okay? Just ask your question. Even if you have to write it down, that's okay. Ask your question and let Mr. Fuller answer your question. You can also, by the way, Gmail me by the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. And when I receive it, I will let you know that by saying got it, as Gary just did. I got it. And it will be read at a certain time when we get time to read it. And also you can get in the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. And then you want to click on programs or shows, and then it's the Produce Justice show or program. Then once you click that, you can there's a little bar that comes up. Click that bad boy, and you're in the chat room. The chatters follow the code very strictly, so don't go in there playing. But they will lively conversations in there, lively chats, good information. You may want to do that, and occasionally I will read some of those chats in there. So. You can do that. Okay, continuing on with the show. Let's go out to Minnesota, supposedly land of the 10,000 lakes, which I have never been. But the Black Mermaid is in the house. Let me see. Black Mermaid, you in the house. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, and good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning again. Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
Yes. So last week, a Gmail came in asking Mr. Fuller what evidence is there that the white supremacists basically control the globe. And I really wanted to hear Mr. Fuller's answer because, I myself, I identify as a victim of white supremacy. And I would like to know what evidence has Mr. Fuller read or what documentaries has he read that helped him come to that conclusion. Because one of your answers, Mr. Fuller, was based on the evidence. And I wanted to know, what is some of the evidence in particular have you read? I would love to read or watch any documentaries that you have read or watched.
Well, the question is, again, it was asked last week, I think, what is the evidence of the existence of the system of white supremacy?
Yes.
Yes. I have it right in front of me. Mm-hmm.
The evidence is evident. Everything that you're looking at. If you're a black person, I mean, you are being mistreated in all areas of activity. That's the evidence. The fact that you're black in a system of white supremacy. It's self-evident. I mean, Black History Month. That's about white supremacy. That's evidence. A black person, everything that you have read about signs being up, and then the signs coming down, and everything you have read about white people on the planet in their interaction with non-white people. It's evidence. Everything you have seen. All areas of activity in economics, the use of time and energy, Everything that you see black people doing is a reaction to the system of white supremacy. Or just look at all the things that you do every day. You're reacting to the system of white supremacy. Every move that you make. Why? Because there is no other system of government that governs you. You're not subject to any other government other than the system of white supremacy. You're not subject to the government of the United States of America if you're black. You're nowhere close to that. You're not a part of that government at all. You are under the jurisdiction of the system of white supremacy if you're black, anywhere you are on the planet, 24/7, in all areas of activity. In economics, economics means how you use your time and energy. The white supremacists determine, if you're black, how you use your time and energy. That's evidence. That's what economics is. Education. We're speaking what we call the king's English. That's a white king. So lots of kings. The white supremacy require you, if you're going to do business with them, to understand, at least understand, the English language, because a lot of the white supremacists prefer that you use the English language or any language that they tell you to use that they understand. And they'll tell you if you're using some language that they haven't heard, you belong to some tribe of 300, and you're speaking in that language, they'll say, well, you can tell us what you mean, but we're not going to struggle through that every day. So I'm going to teach you how to speak English or Spanish, or sometimes they'll call it European languages or Asian languages. But they'll tell you what language to speak. It doesn't make any difference as long as you understand what they say. They'll teach you just enough for you to understand what they have to say to you when they tell you what to do and what you had better not do. Now, this is either true or false. Now, a lot of people say that white supremacy doesn't exist. Lots of black people say that. And if you choose to look at it that way, it doesn't. You can say that the world doesn't exist. If you choose to look at it that way, you can say that you don't exist. If you choose to look at it that way, and I, for one, according to the code, will not argue with you about it. That's not what I do. That's not what I request people to talk to me about. Mm-hmm. I request that people talk to me as victims of white supremacy. Because if you don't consider yourself to be a victim of white supremacy, then you don't talk to Neely Fuller about white supremacy. And so lots of black people who say, white supremacy doesn't exist. In fact, if the white supremacists haven't proven to any black person that I'm talking to now that racism exists in the form of white supremacy, if they haven't learned that from the white supremacists, then it's not my job to prove it to them.
Yes.
It's not my job. My job is to try to help everybody, including myself, who is subject to white supremacy, replace it with a system of justice. And so I could have said that at the opening of my answer, really.
Yeah.
I didn't give a really straightforward answer. I said, somebody's got to tell you that white supremacy exists. It means to you it doesn't exist. So therefore, don't pay any attention to anybody that's talking about it, other than just to learn from them. They are those dumb people. They are those ignorant people who say that there's something called racism, and I don't believe it. So why should I listen to a whole bunch of ignorant people tell me anything? And I'm one of them. Because I say that it not only exists, it governs everything that a black person does if they're on planet Earth.
Okay. All righty. Thank you there, the Black Mermaid. Let's go to get ready, Rita 888. Let's go to constructive actions items. Hey, got you on. Your question for Mr. Fuller.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Question: why do non-white people avoid asking white people questions and even discourage other non-white people from asking questions of white people?
Well, here again, the codified response is you ask those black people who avoid doing it that and get their answer, and then go from there. You might have dozens of answers, questions and answers after that. Part of the code is every problem that is ever solved is solved through the process of questions and answers. And you never move to the second question without the first question being answered. That's just a codified procedure. It will always take, questions and answers will always take everybody right where they should be. That's everybody, without exception. They'll always do that. Questions and answers, questions and answers, questions and answers, questions and answers. It'll take everybody those answers to those questions, even if the answer is I don't know. But those answers will take everybody right where they should be. It won't take everybody where they want to be, but it's guaranteed to take everybody where they should be. To take you to the truth.
Take you to the
keep
truth. I like that.
Asking questions and getting answers to those questions, it's going to lead to the truth. It's going to lead to the truth. And it's going to lead to the truth about even why the person is answering is being asked the questions and the kind of answers you get. You're going to find out everybody's motive through questions and answers. If you're suspicious about it, you say, I'm suspicious of that person, and the kind of answers they give when I ask them a question. All you got to do is just keep asking questions, and they keep answering. They're going to they'll reveal themselves. You'll find out everything you need to know if they just keep answering. That's why lawyers say what more than anything? Don't answer that. Because they know that answers, a question is a loaded thing. The person asking the questions, the more questions you ask and the more answers you get, the more power you get. You're adding to your power. Every time you ask somebody a question and they give you any kind of answer, you are gaining power. Whether you know it or not.
Okay. Thank you, Constructive Action Items. I look forward to whenever you're on the chat and the information that you give. Thank you for your participation in that. I would tell you don't be a stranger, but I don't have to tell you and Rita 888 that because you guys, and SWA, you guys are consecutive, and consistent. All righty. Thank you. Mr. Fuller, now you answer questions all the time because, you want to inform people of what's going on and in all the areas of people activity, the 9 areas of people activity. Some have argued that there should be a 10th, which they say has been health, but you have addressed that many, many times on that. I don't know if they listen to that, but you have addressed that any time. But for those that are new to this program and are just listening, you have a publication out called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It's a book. It's in 3 volumes that you can get at ProduceJustice.com and also understand at Amazon.com. Address that for a few moments, the particulars on that book.
Well, what the book is about is how to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. In my opinion, Neely Fuller's opinion, that's all it is. How do you replace, as an individual person, on a daily basis, go about replacing it, the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, piece by piece, day by day, wherever you happen to be, in all of the areas of activity, because the system of white supremacy covers everything that non-white people do in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The white supremacists, people who believe in, and what is white supremacy? White people who believe in dominating and mistreating people because of the color in the skin of those people and the color classification: black, brown, red, yellow, everything but white. If you're a white supremacist, you believe in mistreating, dominating, and mistreating people who have color in their skin: black, brown, red, yellow, any kind of color, because when it comes to skin color and racism, white is a non-color, or it's the dominant color, either way you want to take it. The dominant color or the royal color, meaning if you're white, you're right about everything when you're dealing with someone who is non-white. As a white person, you're always right about everything when it comes to interacting with a person who has color in his or her skin. That is what white supremacy means. You're always right based on what? I'm white and you are not. And therefore you do what I say. I don't ever have to do what you say. Mm-hmm. Do you understand me with your black, brown, red, yellow, tan, beige self on my planet? That's white supremacy. Now, the textbook for victims of white supremacy addresses the individual non-white person about what you can do about it. It's a book of suggestions on a daily basis in all of the 9 areas of activity. Just some suggestions. And it's written in such a way, and it says in the book, you don't have to do none of this, or you can do parts of it and don't do the rest of it. It's strictly giving you, or recognizing that you do have some self-government, meaning you can make decisions. That's the limit of your government. You can make decisions, but now there will be consequences from the decisions that you make. So therefore, it's a book that says, out of 5 or 6 things you can do, this is probably the best thing. See, I don't know for sure, but it says out of 10 things that you can do about a problem that the white supremacist is causing you, and it's always the white supremacists because they're in charge of everything if you're black on the planet. Now, that statement is either true or false. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, if you don't believe in that white supremacy exists, then the book is not for you. And like this program started off today, we started off talking about proof of the existence of white supremacy. Well, if you need proof of the existence of it and you don't already have it, or that you don't think you're subject to it, then there's no point in talking about the race problem at all. simply because it doesn't exist. Why talk about a problem that doesn't exist and that you see no evidence of its existence? Why talk about it when it doesn't exist? You talk about things that exist. How can a problem be a problem and the problem doesn't exist? That's a question. So the book is made to solve a problem, the race problem. What is that problem? The system of white supremacy, mistreating people on the basis of color. That's a problem in the minds of many people, definitely Neely Fuller Jr. That's the biggest problem I've ever had. I've never had a problem bigger than that, because it governs everything that I have done, including all the mistakes I've made, and just about everything I've done has been a mistake. The only mistake I haven't made so far is trying to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice in all 9 areas of activity. You can get the book if you consider yourself a victim of white supremacy by going to producejustice.com. Right now, one of the copies for sure isn't available right now, but it will be, I've been told yesterday, at the end of this week. By going to producejustice.com, you can get the book. That all books will be available by the end of this week, by the next 10 days at least. And that's all volumes. This is the correct way for me to say it, because it's really all the same book. The basic book, 2016 version, the original version, and the additional word guide. But basically, they're all the same book because they address the same problem.
Okay. All righty, there you have it. ProduceJustice.com, where you can get the book. I have my copies right here, right here. I have them right here. All righty. By the way, for those of you that have just did some oil here on my lips or something. For those of you who have just joined the program, Mr. Fuller will be on this coming Thursday, July the 28th, from 8 until 10 a.m., from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. on the Carl Nelson Show. So make sure that you tune in. You can get that also on the ProduceJustice.com website. You can listen to that program.
Day after tomorrow.
Yes, day after tomorrow, please. Okay, let's go to Milwaukee, and that's going to be Mr. Corey. Mr. Corey.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I had a question. If you have any experience with a similar situation, in my daily work, I am around a small group of the same 3 white people, myself, and a fellow prisoner, a non-white black female. When it's constructive for us to have to be in the same space together, it's completely tacky, trashy, and it's borderline getting to be terroristic. I have found that over the years, the more I'm applying the code, now that I've started to really begin learning, the more hatred or resentment is pushed at me. The more I try to stay codified, minimize contact, to minimize conflict, all of these things are... Have you experienced this, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, that's why I wrote the book. But one of the last things I put into the 2016 edition, and most of them, and I'll say the most important procedure for solving any type of conflict with anybody, is through the process of questions and answers And the best process, I say, that I put into the book, one of the last things I put into the book, the 2016 edition, has to do with wants. So the people that you're working with, for example, want something. That's why they're even at that job. They want something. They want to get paid, I guess. All right? Or they just want to do that type of job, or a combination of both, or maybe dozens of things. Okay. What they also, people don't want. Everybody wants something. Everybody doesn't want something. There are things you do not want. You definitely don't want. You don't want to feel pain or anything like that. That's why you might have some painkillers in your pocket, or aspirin or something in your desk drawer. Aspirin, why do you have aspirin in your desk drawer? Because every now and then I get a headache. That's the answer. Question, answer. That's why I have aspirin, all right? And because I have headaches, or I have a sore shoulder or something, and somebody told me that these pills will make it go away. And so that's why I have it. Questions and answers, all right? So, talking about what you're talking about, you're having problems with anybody, any person that you can interact with. Hello? Are you there?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
You just ask them, what do you want me to do? And then the next question is, why do you want me to do it? And don't interfere with the answers. That's a huge mistake. Just listen, and be ready with the next question. First question, what do you want me to do, sir or ma'am? Always be polite. Always be polite. Don't start getting hostile because they're hostile. Just ask, what do you want me to do, ma'am? And say ma'am and sir, even though it's not popular to do that. But you say it. You go to the nth degree to be courteous. Code says don't let anybody be more courteous than you in a conversation. Because that's part of the conversation, being courteous. You want conversation, not an argument. That's part of the code. You never argue with anybody about anything. You have a conversation. The difference between an argument and a conversation is designed to solve problems. An argument is designed to have arguments, to win arguments. You're not just trying to win an argument. You're trying to solve a problem. So the codified procedure is questions and answers. What do you want me to do? Usually if somebody's talking to you, they want you to do something. Just keep talking. It might be that's what they want you to do. Just keep talking. But you find out what that person wants, not what you want. That's real important. Find out what that person that's talking to you wants. The person wants something or the person wouldn't be talking to you. Okay? You find out what they want, not what you want. You already know what you want. You find out what they want. So you ask them, what do you want me to do? Because they're talking to you. So it's something they want you to do. Otherwise, they'd be talking to somebody else. Next question. Why do you want me to do it, ma'am, sir? Third question. How do you plan for me to do it? Now, this is where it's getting thick. They want you to do something now. What's their plan? And then you can ask questions about the plan. All right? If the conversation goes in that direction. And then the fourth question is, after everything is said, what do you expect the constructive result to be after you do everything that they're asking you to do? That's the wrap-up question. Remember to do that, and don't jump into the Don't cut them off while they're asking you the questions, answering the questions, rather, that you're asking. Don't cut them off in the middle of it and start giving you your viewpoint of what they're talking about. No. Just keep asking questions. Stay in the question lane, even beyond those 4 basic questions. Try to stay in the question lane. Everything that you say, try to keep it in the form of a question. And now, that's difficult to do without practice. But you have to slow down and think. Now, how can I put what I'm fixing to say into the form of a question? That procedure should take everybody right where they should be. Every time. That's code. That's a guarantee. It's going to take everybody right where they should be. And like I said before, it won't take everybody where they want to be. I mean, some people will go into shock when they wind up where they don't want to be. But through that procedure, it's going to take everybody. I mean, just the questions and answers it's going to take everybody right where they should be. Now, in answer to the thing about somebody getting angry, you can add another question, but stay in the question lane. Why are you angry, sir? Why are you angry, ma'am? And let them tell you, and don't break into the answers. That's always a mistake. Don't say, wait a minute. I'm going to cut you off right now on account I got to tell you this. Now, I've done that. I've made that mistake, even, just recently. I mean, sometimes talking on the telephone and whatnot. That's a mistake. That's not codification. Stay in the question lane, because the question and answers will take everybody right where they should be every time. That's code. Has nothing to do with personalities or nothing like that. That's going to work. You can bank on that. Right now,
yeah.
I'm listening to, in the background, somebody who has answered a question. The questions and answers take everybody right where they want to go. I'm hearing a siren in the background while I'm talking. That wasn't
okay. What
that
year?
means somebody is answering a question. That's what that means. That siren. A siren is answering a question.
Yes.
Somebody's on the way. So somebody said, can you come and help me? That's what that siren means. Why? Because that's a fire truck. Somebody in distress. You don't call the fire department just to hold a conversation. Unless you're calling the fire department to hold a conversation, and you can tell them that. And they might say, well, we don't have time just to make, conversations about growing flowers. We got to get out of here and answer the bell for a fire.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much. You know the rule. Don't be a stranger. And Rita 888, yes, he will do it. Yes, he will. Don't get me started, because you know what this program is about. Hey, listen, everybody, thank you for listening to the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. I mean, it's been good. It's been good. And guess what? We got to get better. So thank you for your listenership here for the CRCS. But we have another hour or a little bit more to go. And we will take your calls and all that on the next hour. But if you got to go, again, thank you. Thank you for your participation. And we hope to see you next week. But for those that are going to stay, as Johnny Carson's moniker used to say, we got more to come. We got Mo Fuller. He's coming up after about a 7-second break here on getting ready to say Talktainment. No, here on the Counterintuitive Coach Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Coach Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and so happy that Mr. Fuller has chosen me to be a part of his show. You don't know the story behind all that, but thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. And thank you, callers, for listening. Now, to get in contact with the show, all you have to do is call 516-453-9921. And make sure you press the number 1 button so that you can be heard. And if you are a first-time caller, be sure to tell the call screener that you are. And we have something set up very special for you so that you can be heard. How about that? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Robert and Sharon. And Moon Pie, I need to hear you because I haven't heard you in a long time, Moon Pie, so get on there. And Dollar Bill sometimes ask about you, too. All righty. Anyway, make sure you do that. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And I will indicate that I got it, and it will be read at a certain time when it'll be read at a certain time, so it will get in rotation. It will get in rotation. And lastly, you can also get into the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on programs, and then there is the Produce Justice Show. Click on that bad boy, and then guess what? One more click, which says chat, and you are in the chat room. And now don't play, because there are rules in there, and they follow code. They follow code, which Mr. Fuller opened up the program with. I asked him a question about code, and he thoroughly explained it. If you didn't get it, catch the first hour of that. And I think the first 2 questions had something to do with code. Anyway, being codified, stay codified. And one more thing before we get back to the questions. Mr. Fuller, on this Thursday coming up, July the 28th, from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m., Mr. Fuller will be on the Carl Nelson Show.
That's in the morning.
Yes, in the morning. So make sure you be there, or as they used to say in radio at the first radio station, or the second radio station that I worked at, be there or be square. That was terrestrial radio station back in the day. Whew, Lord have mercy. But anyway, be there. I plan on making sure that I get an opportunity to listen to the show, Carl Nelson Show. So, yeah, no, I'm not intimidated by I like it because I can't get enough. I'm still learning. Okay. Now, we didn't do this in the first hour, Mr. Fuller, and I'm not going to forget that. But we have this session that we have thoughts and expressions from the mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Would you care to go on with that this morning?
Well, I'd rather take calls this morning because last week and a couple of weeks before, it looks like we were running overtime because we wasn't getting taking care of enough calls. So I'd rather put the calls to keep coming.
Okay, and that's due to because your show was so popular, and I do have the numbers, not in front of me, but I do have the numbers, and a lot of times people were not getting in. So what Robert and the crew has done has just added a few extra bit of time so that we can make sure that we get all the callers on that. I hope that is okay with you. But
that's fine. I mean,
yes, okay.
It's a call-in show.
Yes,
that's how we solve problems. People want to talk about on this show. It's supposed to be basically how to solve problems in the most constructive manner.
Okay.
So we don't want to make a problem like having people wait on the phone and they can never get in. Because I'm talking about what I got on my mind. Mm-hmm. It's what they have on their minds. That's why they're calling. That's the codified procedure. So
yes, sir.
That takes priority.
Okay. Well, then we'll just use what you said at the beginning of the show about the code as being thoughts and expressions of your mind, which you did an excellent job on that, by the way. So we'll do that. We'll let that suffice. And then maybe next week we'll open up the program. But, yeah, Robert fixed it so that we have just a little bit extra time. And then I like it at the end. They let me know when the last caller is in. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Robert.
We can go right to it.
We can go right to it. All right, let's get on with it. Okay, the dollar, I gave you some holler. Here you go. Got you, brother. You in the house. Go ahead. Dollar bill, come on.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm getting ready to cut you off, man. Come on.
I know, Mr. Bobby. Listen, it was a great show, Mr. Fuller. You kind of answered the question I was having. It seems like it's on everybody's mind, dealing with this question of when people come to us and they be like, you know what, there is no white supremacy. I just had this conversation with a buddy of mine who's traveled the world, famous musician, and he's like, Bill, he was talking about how there's a small population of people who control everything and are paying off people to give out information or to not let information out. They're able to pay them off. So I said, hey, well, that's the white supremacist. He says, Bill, I know Mr. Fuller. I've read his stuff. I listened to him. He said, but he missed the important part. He said, it's not about color. He said, it's about their annihilation. He's saying that they're so worried about being annihilated because their numbers are so low, and it's a mutation that they have come to this skin. And he says there is no white. He says that is a concept, that they have fooled us into thinking that there's white and black and those things. So I wanted to thank you for those answers you gave today. But I wanted you to, I guess what I wanted to say is, one thing is that, yes, it is the most powerful skill I have taught my children in class, that to question those questions and answers solve problems. But to get back to that point of how they are, these people are asking, so I'm saying, in other words, this would be their question. Since most people are suffering in this world, in this current system, could decreasing birth rate of the European be the main reason there is injustice, not the system of racism, white supremacy? And I'll stay on the line, Mr. Bobby. Have a good day, John.
All right, got you.
I didn't get the question.
Hey, Dollar Bill, could you ask that again, that last part of the question?
Yes. The question was, in other words, since most people are suffering in the current system, could decreasing birth rate of the European be the main reason there is injustice, not the system of racism, white supremacy?
The decrease in the birth rate
of the
Europeans, the cause of problems,
be the main reason there is injustice, because of them feeling that they...
Is the main reason for the injustice is the decrease in the population of Europeans. Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
That could be a part of it, what they call Europeans, but I don't even use that term European because I don't know what that means. I say that there are three categories of people, according to the code of people on planet Earth, when it comes to this thing called race and or racism. White people, non-white people, and white supremacists. And the term European is not a term that I use because I really don't know what it means. There's a lot of black people who say that they're European or they speak European languages. What is a European? What exactly is a European? That's the question. Because I've always said, and a part of the code is, and I just got through talking about that, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So the question is, first of all, what is a European? I don't know. So somebody has to tell me what a European is if I'm going to find out. I've read something about geography and whatnot and where they're located, and then other people say, no, Europeans are located everywhere. They go everywhere, don't they? They are wherever you find them. And then there are some people who say that they were born in Europe. Other people say they were born in Latin America, but they are now living in Europe, and they are citizens of Germany, London, and they call themselves by those titles. So what exactly is a quote-unquote European as distinguished from someone who's not? Because when people talk about it, they're usually talking about a geographical location. And when it comes to racism, the racists say, I am wherever I am. And I am dominant over non-white people wherever I am. That's the white supremacist view. If I am on the planet Venus or on the moon, and I'm a white supremacist, and there are any non-white people anywhere in the universe, even if I haven't seen them, I'm classified by being white and a white supremacist as being the person who is supposed to be dominant over them. Dominant meaning I can do anything with them, for them, against them that I choose, and they're not supposed to do nothing with me that I don't want to do. That's what white supremacy means.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say European, I first have to understand what that means. Because I don't. Because I have no idea what a European is. It's white, non-white, white supremacist. That's all I know. That's according to the code. That's the population of the planet Earth. White, non-white, white supremacists. And the white supremacists tell all of the non-white people what to do. Now you got another category called white people, other than the white supremacists and their victims, which are the non-white people. But they are the white people who are not white supremacists. Because people have asked me, is every white person a white supremacist? And I say, I don't know, but I don't think so. It's not logical for me to think that. Why? Because there are white babies that are born every minute somewhere. And those white babies, it's not logical that they could practice white supremacy because they don't know their colors yet. You have to know your colors. You have to know the difference between black and white, the difference between white and non-white, in order to qualify to be a white supremacist. You have to know the difference between one color and another, and a newborn baby does not know that. And the other is a white person who, well, is really the same thing. It might be, I said a newborn baby, but it also applies to a white person who once knew their colors, but they forgot their colors, meaning they reached the age where they didn't know a spoon from a fork, or they didn't know a cloud from steam, or a train from a car. In other words, they have lost the ability to distinguish between one thing and another. And sometimes they call it senility, they call it old age. But that white person may have been what you call the head of an organization like quote unquote organization like the Ku Klux Klan. Might have been the head at one time, but now that person is no longer able to tell one color from another or a spoon from a fork. So you can't say that that person is a white supremacist. You can say they used to be, but now they don't know a spoon from a fork and do not know one color from another. So the person is not a racist anymore. So senile people and newborn babies, you can kind of rule them out as being white supremacists.
Yes, sir.
If they do not know one color from another. But everybody else should be suspected, if they are classified as white, suspected of being a white supremacist until proven otherwise. Proven to whom, according to the code? Proven to the victim, who makes that decision. Any white person that I talk to, and I come to the conclusion that that person is able to tell one color from another, according to the counter-racist code, it is my duty to suspect that white person may be, not is, but may be a racist. That's a duty. That's not an option. And it's based on logic. I don't have a master list of who's a racist and who's not in a racist system. So therefore, every white person who is able to be a racist, it is Neely Fuller's duty to suspect that that white person just might be one. Just might say the person is one, but I suspect the person could be one.
Yes, sir.
Why? Because that's the dominant government on the planet, the system of white supremacy. And white people are expected to be racist in that dominant government.
Yes, sir.
Just one government. Right.
All righty. Let's go to Houston. Cleo, man, and thank you for informing me of that information. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Long live NFJ and forever live Logic. Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Moon Pie Robert, Sharon, CRCS, Tunes. Appreciate y'all. Listen, Mr. Fuller, my question is, how do we encourage our care unit, whether that be our care mate or our care children? How do we encourage them to be more conscious about the system of white supremacy, what it is and how it operates, and to be invested in that process? How do we go about doing that? That's my first question, and after you answer that, I got a quick second one.
Yes, you go about it telling them to do the most constructive thing. And when they're old enough, just tell them to read the code book. And read it in the way, because their instructions are a codified way of reading the code book that I have produced, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept that you can get by going to producejustice.com. And the way you read it, and that would apply to everybody, you just pick it up and turn to any page and then see what you think. And just keep picking it up and putting it down. You don't have to sit down and try to read the book from front to back. That's not the easiest way to do it. The easiest way to do it is just pick it up like I do, my own book, because I've forgotten a whole lot of things that I've written. I just pick it up, turn to any page, and that page tells me something. And then I think about what I just read and say, is this constructive? That's the first thing I ask. And if it's something that has to do with truth, is this true or false? If it's a statement. And if it's a question, there's usually an answer that goes with it in there, That's how I intended to write it, questions and answers. And then I say, is this true? Or is this constructive? And what can I do with it? If it is true, it is constructive. And then it's got suggestions there, and I'll read whatever the suggestion is. And then I'll try it and see if it works. And that's how you do it. Because it's all about problem solving. See, in your offspring, you don't have to tell them about racism until what? They start asking questions. That's when you start giving answers. And that applies to anything. That's the procedure. Mm-hmm. Even if there was no racism. That's how you handle anybody's problems. People have problems. All people have problems.
Yes.
So when people come, if they don't know how to solve their problems without asking somebody else, then they ask somebody else. That's a built-in code in people. Talking about code, everybody does that. I don't know how to find the bus stop. Can somebody tell me? See, that's a problem. You don't know something that you think you should know. It's the same way with young people. They don't know something that they think they should know. So you teach them, the first thing you teach them is that if you have a problem, bring it to me. And if my answer is I don't know, then my next statement is supposed to be I'm going to find out, because I am supposed to help you to solve whatever problem you have. And that's what you tell all young people. People have asked me that over and over again. What do you tell young people? I say you tell young people the same thing you tell old people. You tell them the truth.
Yes.
About how to get anything done, the best thing you know. And if you don't know, tell them, I'm going to try to find out. Now, that's code. Anything that you don't know that you need to know, you should be trying to find out. Someone told me years ago, Fuller, I'll ask you a question, and you'll fumble around wasting everybody's time for a half an hour because you are embarrassed about not knowing something that you should know. And then he made a statement. He said, let me give you a suggestion. Never, ever be embarrassed about not knowing what you should know. Be embarrassed about not trying like hell to find out. Once you find out you don't know and you should know. See, that's all. See, but never be embarrassed about not knowing. And I thought about that, and that is true. And that's an excellent suggestion.
Yes, sir. What was your second question, sir? Quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Quickly. So, Mr. Fuller, what has been the responses in thought, speech, and action of your personal care unit to your teachings on white supremacy and racism?
Agreements and non-agreements, which is what the code says. I have people who are kin to me, what you call kin, quote, unquote, who do not agree with many of the viewpoints that I have. They agree with most, but sometimes many, that I have. And that's okay. That's codification. Codification is not trying to get another person to agree with you, but just to think about what you said and put it to a test. Because when they put it to a test, the test proves itself. It either works in the way that they want it to work, or it doesn't. That's why, like I'm hearing from Mr. Bobby about chat rooms, there shouldn't be any arguments, there shouldn't be any shouting or people talking about, you don't know what you're talking about or something like that. Everybody knows what they're talking about, according to the code. So everybody can give their viewpoint. Like many people say to me, this thing called white supremacy, people talking about that, they're a bunch of nut jobs, including Neely Fuller. People have said that to me directly. And I don't argue with them. I just simply say, well, that's your view. It comes under VGQ. I invented that term. Victims Guaranteed Qualification. You're qualified to say that. Anything about race, racism, or counter-racism. Any person is qualified, black person is qualified to say anything that he or she wants to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism. You're qualified to do that. Totally qualified. You don't have to ask for nobody's qualification. But by being what? A victim of racism. By being in a world dominated by racism. How come you're not qualified to say what you want to say about it? And Neely Fuller is not supposed to disagree with you. He'll just stick to whatever he has to say about it, because he has victims guaranteed qualification. So it shouldn't be any arguments at any time, not one, between one non-white person and another about anything that has to do with racism. There should never be a single argument.
Yeah, never. Okay. All righty. Thank you, Cleo, and thank you for your patience. Really appreciate that. Listen, before we take this break, I want to just say something to the men, brothers. I guess women also, but mainly brothers. Hey, when our bodies are decaying all the time, all the time. A lot of times, youth disguises, how we are declining. Go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Get checked out, whether it's prostate glands, your eyes, your heart. Get your blood pressure checked. Get that man exam. Okay, I know we don't like certain things, but you need to do that. And especially if you get a certain age, you might want to consider taking the shingles vaccination. With all that stuff, because there are things that are going to happen to your body that you may not be aware of. I was speaking with my pharmacist the other day. About 45 minutes we had a conversation. He was telling me all about the pharmaceutical industry and what they do and don't do and all that. He was horrified at that. And most of us don't go, especially black men in particular, do not go and get ourselves checked out. Maybe it's a pride thing. I don't know. All I know is pride come up before a fall. Go get checked out and get it fixed. That's all. Now, some like that, some don't. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just making a suggestion. You may want to do that. All right, let's take a station break. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com. Now, to get into the show, all you have to do is dial 516-453-9921. That's to get in contact with the show. I couldn't even think of the word. And then when you do, make sure you press the number 1 button so that you can get in line and be heard. And we're trying to make sure that everybody will be heard. Okay. You can also join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on where it says programs. And then programs, and then the Produce Justice show will come up. Hit that bad boy, and then the chat room pops up. And if you want to get into the chat room, and trust me, they are codified in there, which reminds us, everybody, stay on code. Stay on code. Tell the truth. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And occasionally I will get a chance to read your Gmails. I will also let you know that when it does come in, I will say, got it. And then probably or usually it will fall back into rotation. And then at a certain time, it will be read. And then I will inform you and let you know. Information, Mr. Fuller will be on the Carl Nelson Show this Thursday, July the 28th, from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. That's 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Mr. Fuller will be on. So make sure, and especially you, 888, if you're in the DMV. But anyway, the DMV, if you're there, yeah, check that out. But even if you're not there worldwide, he will be on there, because you just can't seem to, well, I know for me, I just can't seem to get enough of that. And I like the show, and I like hearing what Mr. Fuller has to say, the questions that come in, because like you, I am still learning. First-time callers, if you call in, let the call screener know that you are a first-time caller, and then guess what? You can go to the head of the line. Well, you'll get in rotation so that you can be heard. Okay, I think that's in. Let's go to the phone calls. Justin in Illinois. You're on. Gotta catch me. Here you go. Yeah, that background noise is messing it up.
Well, I'm riding the mower. I'm sorry. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I was just like Mr. Fuller to speak on a statement. I was listening to one of his older shows. He made a statement, white man first, dog second, N-word last. I would like him to speak on that.
Okay, Ms. Fuller?
The N-word?
Was last.
No. White, it was an older show. You made a statement. A white man made a phrase or said a phrase. White man first, dog second, N-word last.
Oh, yes. What about that?
Can you just expand on that, or explain how that?
No, that was an incident. That was an incident.
Yeah.
I was talking about an incident that happened that involved I had a cousin. Right after World War II, came back from the South Pacific, and he was in uniform, and he was going back. I think he was passing through a town, and on his way back, his first trip back after 2 years overseas in the South Pacific, right after the war, World War II, had been declared over. And he was still in uniform, and he passed through this town and had a brief layover or something like that. And anyhow, he just walked up to the first person he saw, and it was just one person standing there, and it was a white man. And he walked up to him and started talking, and I don't know how the conversation started, the way he reported it to me, but somehow they wound up in a conversation. And so the conversation started off. It was just a very brief conversation, because the first thing that he said to the white man, somewhere briefly, he said, well, just asked a question. Well, how are things going? You know, how's everything? I kind of been away for a while, and how's everything? And the white man looked at him up and down, didn't answer right away, the way he reported it to me, my cousin that is, and said, well, same old, just like it's always been. White man first, dog next, and then the N-word last, unquote. White man first, dog next, and the N-word. You squeeze that dog in between the white man and the Negro. white man first, dog next, Negro last, like it's always been. In other words, he was sending that message. Hey, it doesn't make no difference about you being in uniform. You fighting in the South Pacific. You back here now. And everything is just like you left it. White man first, dog next, and you last. But he used the N word. Now, he didn't say Negro. All right. White man first, dog next, and you with your N-word self last, just like you left it. And that's the way it's going to be. You found it just like you left it, and that's the way it's all to be. More or less. Now, he didn't say all that added, but my cousin knew what that meant.
Yes.
And it was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the dog comes before you. Our dogs are priority over you. It don't make no difference what kind of uniform you're wearing. I'm looking at your major uniform. Your major uniform is the color of your skin. And that means that you are last in everything when it comes to me and my whiteness. And not only that, I'll give you priority over a dog any day. I'll give you rather the dog priority over somebody like you any day. And that's why my cousin was telling me that story. He said, hey, he said, but my cousin said, he didn't say anything that I didn't expect.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Justin. Don't be a stranger, my brother. Don't be a stranger. Welcome in the chat room, Candor and Nollins. Wake up. Hey, new to the chat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Let's see here. Mr. Fuller from the Gmails. This is, what is her name here? Identify her syntax. She said, Miss Anonymous. Her topic was a millennium. She said, Mr. Fuller, why most millenniums feel like they don't have to work, but if they do get a 9-to-5 job, they family members doesn't feel proud of them. Why?
If they get a 9-to-5 job, their family members don't what?
They're not proud of them.
And they don't want to work?
Well, they got the job, but I don't know if the family members are embarrassed, but they're not proud of them for getting a 9-to-5 job. So a lot of the millennials said, well, I guess if you're not proud of me, then I don't feel like working. So Miss Anonymous wanted to know, why is that? Why is that thinking that way?
Well, you can ask the people who are in the 9-to-5 job or whatever it is, whatever the code says, whatever people are doing, they have a reason for doing it. And all you have to do is ask them the reasons. It might be that's all they can get, and they don't know anything else. I can't answer that. You have to talk to the people that you're talking about. They have the answers. And if they don't give you an answer you're satisfied with, just keep asking questions until they tell you to stop asking questions. And once they tell you to stop asking questions about that, then that's the end of that. Now, that's according to the code. Always ask, don't ask a third person about something that the other person is doing, other than just to say that's what they're doing and ask your opinion. But my opinion, according to the code, would be the best person to answer any question is the person whom you're talking about. That's the best person. Whatever, if I see a person chopping cotton, I don't stand over there by the fence and ask the person next to me, why is that person chopping cotton when they can get a better job? The answer would be, all questions are valid, rather. And the procedure is to ask questions, but it's to whom you ask the questions.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
And so you always ask the question. Now, the person can ask me, but you have to specify. I have to know something about the person that's doing it. You can ask me about something that another person is doing, but then I have to ask a question of that person that you're talking about, and then come back and tell you. Otherwise, I can't get a straight answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can tell you what I think.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But sometimes, according to the code, my best thought will come from, well, I'll have to go and ask that person, then come back and tell you why that person said that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because otherwise, I'm guessing. And codification is about reduce the guesswork.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 516-453-9921 is the preferred method that you use to ask Mr. Fuller a question. Make sure you give the call screener your name. Generally, we don't ask a question, from the chat room. I will occasionally mention a chat that something is being said on there. But as we move on, here's a question for you, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Bobby, can you ask Mr. Fuller briefly to explain racial dislocation, racial casting, racial sexual confusion, white sacrifices?
Well, I'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
Racial showcasing means what it says right in the textbook, and that is a person showing being the white supremacist taking a non-white person and showcasing that non-white person by giving them a lot of attention, say, for example, in the press or on television, and say, and the message that showcasing is sending is that, see, racism doesn't exist. This black person has this prominent job. He's a general in the army, okay? Or it might be, look at all the money this person is making as a comedian. I mean, a ton of it. More money than most white people will ever see in their possession. And here's a black person, as black as he can be, and I'm paying him millions of dollars just to tell a few jokes. He didn't make me do it. I'm doing it. And I'm white. So what does that tell you? That's supposed to tell you, or I intend to tell you, that racism doesn't exist. Because look at him. He's black, and he's making more money than the average white person will ever make. He's making more money right now than that white person will ever make in a lifetime. In a whole lifetime. Millions of white people would like to have that type of money, but they don't have it because I'm giving it to this black person to tell a few jokes. That's racial showcasing, as an example. And here in the year 2022, you'll be seeing more and more and more of that. And sometimes people have asked me, well, what do you do if you're being showcased, fella? You're a black person that's been chosen. I say, you take the money and run. Why? Because if you don't, They're just going to choose somebody else. They don't care who they showcase. That's one example of showcasing.
Yes. And the other, that was, okay, what about racial dislocation?
Racial dislocation means every now and then you got to move. Now, the races definitely have to see that happens. If you're non-white and on this planet, and you're located somewhere where you look like you're getting stronger and stronger and stronger, for some strange reason, and the reason the white supremacists are doing it is not strange because it's a part of their strategy, and that is, I'm going to let him stay there or let her stay there, this black person, for the next 10 years. And then I'm going to say we have to build a highway right where they are, or an overpass, or we have to do something over there that they're going to want to move from where they are. Keep them moving, because they have found out when people are dislocated, that doesn't mean relocate. Relocate means you do it on your own, because you think that one place, the place you're going to, is better than the place where you are. Dislocation is like dissing, all right?
Yeah, dissing, yeah.
Yeah, they are telling you, for the betterment of this and that and the other, we got to have you move. Or sometimes they don't tell you anything because you're being dislocated. You dislocate, you're being dislocated. But they cause you to move, not by telling you, but you found out that there's arsenic in the water where you are. You got a big fancy house, but then you find out that, hey, if you turn on that faucet and use any of that water, it's going to have arsenic in it. It's killing you. I mean, your plants even die. It's got so much poison. You're sitting on poison ground. And anything that comes through that ground is going to be poison. So now you're trying to pay on this nice house located exactly where you thought you wanted it to be. Now you're being dislocated. You got to move. And they got all kinds of ways of having you move.
Yes.
But they have black people moving from one place to another. They'll say, well, I'm satisfied here and everything is just right, but this is a food desert. I have to go too far to get some food. And if I don't have a car, there's no way, and nobody's bringing me any food and whatnot. I got a nice place. I like everything, but I can't get this, I can't get that. And so I'm going to have to relocate. But you are being dislocated because they moved everything that will help you from around you. Slowly it just disappeared. Or wasn't there in the first place. You find out that, that highway that I was going to use to get to the shopping center, which is not far away, they're moving, they're closing that highway. And now I got to go, I can't even get to that shopping center at all because it's nothing that gets there from this direction. So now I got to go 40 miles just to get anything, the least little thing. And not only that, by them closing down that highway, I can't even get to work. I'm going to lose my job. See, they got all kinds of ways of what you call pulling the rug out from under you, which causes dislocation. Now, that's just one example, but they got all kinds of ways.
Okay. Racial, sexual... sorry.
Yes, they make black people move just when they get to the place where they think that they're getting ahead. And they say, now, he thinks him building that house or him moving into that complex or whatever, he thinks he's all set. And 10 or 15 years later, when he's least able to go anywhere else, that's when I'm going to hit him.
Okay.
Or her.
Or her.
With dislocation, right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the last one for this one is racial sexual confusion.
Oh, they call that, I mean, with all of this rainbowism, sexual sabotage, you can put it under all kinds of titles.
Okay.
But when you confuse someone sexually, getting away from male and female, the farther you get away from male with female persons, the more sexual confusion you are producing. So that's one of the confusions, because all of this for the purpose of confusion, because the white supremacists know scientifically that confused people are the easiest people to handle, the easiest people to dominate. And when you dominate or confuse people sexually, you can, in one area of activity, and that's the sexual activity, it is much easier to dominate and confuse them in all the other areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, and war. It's much easier. Once you get control of a person, a person's mind when it comes to sexuality, you can control them and jerk them around in any other area of activity with great ease, like a puppet on a string. It's much. You can do it with all the areas of activity. If you've got confusion, economics, education, but the sexual thing, and the white supremacists know this, and many of us apparently don't know it. Once you get control of a person's sexual mind, that you can just take them and have them doing this, whatever you want them to do, and guide them in that direction, usually at an early age, then it's easy, just like a puppet on a string or a dog on a leash, to jerk them around in all the other areas of activity. Why? Because sex is a very strong impulse.
Yes, sir.
Sex is a very strong driving force. The white supremacists know that. So they sent out word quite a while ago, get complete control of black people's minds when it comes to sex, even if you have to beat it into them. All right? But nowadays, we can, through the television, through propaganda, through pumping them up, telling them that it's popular, try any old thing and whatnot, and you will be glorified and paid well, all of those who want to join in and whatnot. And then once we get that sexual thing under our control, then it's much easier to control them in economics, in education, in entertainment, in anything.
Yes, sir.
Whatever it is that black people do sexually, if we got control of that, it's much easier to control them in everything else. And they've just about completed that among huge numbers of the non-white people of this planet here in the year 2022.
Okay.
It's sexual and racial sabotage. That's what it is.
Racial sabotage.
Racist sexual sabotage of non-white people's sexuality.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. This is what we're going to do. We're going to get the new caller in, which is going to be Al, and then we're going to go to KQ, and then the last caller of the day is going to be Brother Warren from Nolens. So let's get the new caller in first. Okay, wait a minute. See, new caller. Yeah, here we go. Let me get this cursor down. Okay, new caller, you're on. You are. Wait a minute. There you go. Is this Al? Let's see, Al. Let's see. There you
Baltimore.
go. Yeah, Al from Baltimore. Go ahead, Al.
All right. Good morning, fellas. Hey, Mr. Fuller, I have a question. In regards to, you've made statements that all living creatures want fun, glory, and material comfort. I've heard you go into detail about fun, that's enjoyment. Glory, I think you explained that as wanting attention. But I don't think I've ever heard you really go into detail about material comfort. Could you explain what material comfort means? And I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Material comfort is just having things that make you comfortable. Just a simple thing like a chair. You walk into a hotel lobby, you look around, and you just automatically gravitate toward sitting in the chair or the sofa or whatever's in there that you think will give you the most comfort. You just automatically do that. The white supremacists understand that. See, so they know that all creatures, including themselves, want material comfort. The sofa is made out of material. You get on a train, you try to find, now, it seems like it's crowded up there, but here's a whole half a car. Nobody's sitting in it, I got a whole half a car to myself, not to say anything about a seat. I can get up and change seats because half of this particular car doesn't have anybody. That one I just left, people are right shoulder to shoulder. It's packed. But, you got up and went to another section. You asked the porter or whomever the attendant is in there, is this restricted or something? Say, no, just take any seat you want. And it's just 5 people in there and 70 seats. So that's what you call material comfort. You can kind of stretch out. And then you look for other comforts. You notice that some of the seats have the little wider armrest where you can put something to drink in it because it's got a cup holder on it, and some of them don't. So if you got something in your hand, you pick the one that has the cup holder. If you got a cup in your hand, cup of milk or whatever, and so if that gives you more comfort, you don't have to sit it on the floor, try to look around, or just hold it in your hand while you're trying to read something, whatnot. You got a cup holder. You got several of them right there where you're sitting. These are just small illustrations. But everybody wants material comfort, and every day, all day.
Okay.
And that's just, these are just simple examples. But anything that gives you comfort, gives the body comfort, gives the mind comfort, because body and mind work together.
Yes, they do. All right, Al in Baltimore, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. Okay, I'm having a problem saying your name. KQ, you are on. Brother Warren, you're next. Go ahead, KQ.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's pronounced Kwaku.
Oh, okay,
no
Kwaku.
problem.
Okay.
So my question was, speaking of racist suspects, what is the codified response for racist suspects who have expressed that their goal is not to produce justice or eliminate the system of white supremacy?
And your question is, how do you react to it, or what?
Yes, how do you respond to racist suspects who have expressed that their goal is not to produce justice or eliminate the system of white supremacy?
Then you tell them what is there, what is it? If they're telling you this, what do they want you to do? If it's something they want you to do, or you can ask them, well, what do you want to do then? While you're here, and just go right through those questions and answers. It always applies. Questions and answers apply to everybody. You know, what do you want to do? Now, he's telling you what he's not going to do. So what is he going to do? And he might wind up, most likely, if he says he's not trying to eliminate racism, then you can ask him or her, what do you want to do? And let them tell you. And don't lead into the question. Don't say, do you want to be a racist? That's not the best question. That is a question. You can't ask that. But it's best to ask them, what do you want to do? You just told me what you didn't want to do. You didn't want to eliminate racism. Yeah, that's not your goal. So what do you want to do? And whatever the answer is, you got your answer. Mm-hmm. And if you're not satisfied with that answer, ask another question. That's the codified procedure.
Okay.
And then ask another question and another question until you get to the final question. And how do you know you're at the final question? Because you got all the answers that you wanted to get.
Okay. All righty. Let's go to Brother Warren in Nolens. Brother Warren, Nolens, go. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Greetings, Mr. Fuller. I wanted to ask you 3 quick questions. Number 1, does VGQ entail a person to misapply the code that you developed? Does VGQ also entail a person to misapply the code? And number 2,
wait a minute, let Ms. Fuller answer the first question first.
Okay.
No, the code, first of all, is about truth. And anytime you say anything about the code that the code wasn't designed to do, you're not telling the truth. And that throws everything out the window. The counter-racist code is, first of all, it's 3 elements: truth plus justice plus correctness equals peace. That's the goal of the whole textbook for victims of white supremacy. You're supposed to be producing peace. But you can't have peace in anything where people are not being truthful. And
that's true.
And to take something that is not true, that's not code. If you're going into any kind of falsehood, anything that projects something that's not true, that's anti-code right there. And there's no point in going no further.
All right, number 2, please, sir.
Anybody who distorts something that somebody else is saying, or they change it, or they modify it so that it means something else other than what it was intended to mean, or you're saying something that a person said something, and you're saying you're supposed to be repeating what the person said, but you don't repeat what the person says. You modify it and make it into something else. That's not being truthful. That's dealing with what the white supremacists definitely want, and that's confusion. Because falsehood causes confusion. And there are a lot of people, including the white supremacists more than anybody, I say, because the white supremacists are to blame for everything that happens that shouldn't happen. But they're sometimes doing it through non-white people who distort the compensatory code that Neely Fuller has written.
Okay.
Every now and then I misquote somebody, but boy, when I find it out, I get busy trying to unpack that and let the world know I misquoted, whether they're white or non-white. If I misquote Thomas Jefferson, I want, and somebody calls and say, he didn't say that, not the way you're saying it. He said it this way. And then I find out the truth of how it was said, regardless of how I got it. Hey, no, say it just exactly the way he said it. And don't change not one word.
Okay.
Because
now,
that causes what? That causes confusion.
Confusion. Now I have to say this: that the computer is going to cut us off in a few minutes. So be quick on your question. What's your second question, please, sir?
The first question was asked because are you concerned, Mr.
Go
Fuller?
into your second question because we're running out of time. So
no,
go ahead,
I'm asking the second. I'm asking the.
Oh, okay.
Are you concerned? Okay. Are you concerned that some victims of white supremacy are misapplying and misusing your words to cause conflict with other victims of racism and white supremacy?
That's a violation of the code right there.
Thank you.
If the result of what you say causes conflict with other non-white people, then that means that you are not following the code. If it's the cause of conflict. I mean, why have a code that leads to conflict between victims? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the third question?
It's not logical. Go ahead. Third question.
No, the point is because it's shameful that there are people misusing your words to cause conflict with other victims of racism.
It's not supposed to happen. Under VGQ, it's not supposed to be an argument ever. If you're having an argument, it ain't code. You're not following the code.
Thank you so much.
What you say when a person doesn't agree with what you're saying, you just say, well, that's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion.
Okay.
Under VGQ, which everybody's qualified. Everybody's qualified to say whatever they say, except when you ain't qualified to lie on nobody, whether they're white or non-white. You can't tell no lies now. Because the code says got to always be true, using the truth. Using the truth.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Last
caller, John, quickly.
Well, obviously, Grand Risings, gentlemen, and I'm going to have to address you next week about him being a member of the Muskogee Nation. The way of asking the question I had in mind, Mr. Bobby, this morning, and maybe remember that with his thoughts and expressions.
Hey, I'll tell you what, John, if you can, call in first, or when you do call in, they'll just expedite you up so you can ask your question because you are the last caller for today. Sorry about that, but, we just got hung up on that. But, yeah, we'll try to remember that. You want to ask a question about Muskogee, you say?
And sharing what his parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents may have told him, and what is the difference between an American Negro and a Native American. Thank you for the time, and brothers, have a wonderful morning.
All right, thank you, John. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Sorry we had to go, but they gave us a little extra time, but, we can't take advantage of that in a wrong way. But thank you for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you for all the calls. Thank you, chatters. Thank you, Gmailers. We hope to do better next week. Boy, we hope to do better. Mr. Fuller, thank you, and we'll be looking forward to hearing you on Thursday on the Carl Nelson Show from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. Last word, Mr. Fuller.
Last word is right now, all I can squeeze in is go to producejustice.com, at least within the next week when all the books are in.
All right. Everybody,
those who
thank
don't
you.
Have books.
And have a wonderful day. Thank you.